Some games are fun because they're relaxing and nice. These aren't those. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 of the hardest 90s games of all time. Starting off at number 10, it's Super Ghouls and Ghosts, released way back in 1991 on the Super Nintendo. One of the Capcom classics as far as I'm concerned. The original Ghosts and Goblins is considered one of the hardest games of all time, and this game absolutely follows that game's footsteps, albeit this game happened in the 1990s. I don't know why they went with Super Ghouls and Ghosts and not Super Ghosts and Goblins, although I do like the name Ghouls and Ghosts better. But hey, it's really irrelevant because you can die really fast in either of those games, and Super Ghouls and Ghosts is of course a nicer looking way to die. Enemies pretty much attack you from all angles, just like in the original, and when you jump in the air you just have no control at all. There is a double jump, you can change direction, but it's still really tough. This game is just filled with nasty traps like transforming environments and chests containing traps and magicians. I'm having flashbacks. It's actually not quite as hard as the 1985 original, but it's still pretty difficult. Also, it's a great game. Number 9 is The Lion King, which was released in November 1994 for Genesis and Super Nintendo. It was developed by Westwood Studios. Yes, Command & Conquer Westwood Studios. And it was made hard for probably the most cynical possible reason. However, Lion King is an awesome game, so I'm not going to complain. However, it was made difficult because Disney and their analytics and their focus groups and their endless study of the behavior of children that they can manipulate, kids would rent games at Blockbuster, and according to Disney, if they had gotten through a certain portion of the game during a rental period, they would be less likely to buy the game. So they went to Westwood Studios and said, hey, make the game a lot harder. So they took the level Can't Wait to Be King and just made it stupid hard, especially the monkey puzzle part. I mean, actually the rest of the game isn't super bad, but that is a huge difficulty spike, and it's there to psychologically manipulate people so Disney can make more money. At number 8 is Tomb Raider 3, released on November 20th, 1998 for Windows and PlayStation. It was developed by Core Design, who also made the first 2 games, and they're also tough, but this is probably the toughest, at least out of the originals. I mean, I'm sure they felt like they had to progress things in some way, but they really did go overboard with the difficulty. The biggest problem with the game is the open levels. You'd think that making the levels more non-linear would actually make them more fun. Actually just kind of makes them more confusing. Keep in mind, open level design, open worlds wasn't really a big thing in 1998, but you know, points for trying. Add in the death traps that are everywhere and secrets that are often easier to find than the actual way you're supposed to go, and you've got a pretty frustrating game on your hands. But hey, kids and their video game ladies, right? At number 7 is Myst, and wow, do I remember being frustrated with this game. It came out in 1993 for Mac and then Windows in 94. Cyan developed it and really wanted to baffle folks. It's a first-person puzzle game, and I mean, it just drops you onto this island. A guy in a book gives you some exposition, and then from that point forward, it's just you, man. You gotta figure it out. All of the puzzles are just sort of bizarre, and they're everywhere, and you have like basically no clues how to solve them. You just have to keep doing stuff until you figure it out. The most notorious puzzle is, of course, the piano one. If you ever struggle to tell the difference between sounds from a piano, and, you know, a lot of people don't have the ear for that because you usually have to be trained to have that. I mean, there are people with natural music ears out there. It's not most people. It's not even most piano players. Most piano players are trained. So a lot of people struggle with this. I mean, once you knew what to do, it really didn't take very long to finish the game, but finishing it without a guide, wow. At number 6 is Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. LucasArts dropped this one in 1993 for the Super Nintendo. It's, I mean, not tough for any particular reason other than it's tough. All the Super Star Wars games are pretty hard, but this one really sticks out in most people I talk to's memory as probably the toughest of the 3. The first stage, Hoth, I mean, you just get swarmed by all these little enemies in this gigantic maze level. There's lots of power-ups around, but good luck getting to them. these levels are not designed to be, well, legible. They're very confusing. If you can imagine Star Wars but a tornado, that's kind of what we're dealing with. Bosses are also particularly nasty. They'll just eat right through your health like it's nothing. The game's just all around chaos. And then you find out Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. It's just like, what? At number 5 is Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which came out in 1997 on the old PlayStation. It's kind of a weird game. It certainly appeared very strange at the time because it was nothing like it. It's something kind of like Prince of Persia, a kind of cinematic platformer telling a story. But you can't fight. If you try to fight, you're going to die because you can't at all. The game is specifically about solving puzzles and sneaking past dangerous enemies. Everything in the game, not just the enemies, the puzzles too can kill you. And it didn't really have a very good save system. In fact, that's probably the hardest part of the game. The game's really unforgiving, and any mistake can lead to its sudden death, and dying can be going back to the beginning of an entire section. It's one of those games where, it's expecting you to platform with precision, so being able to save at any point would be really nice. The sequel incorporated a quick save function that made it a lot more playable, but the original, well, let's just say there were 30-minute stretches of the game that you could die at any point and have to do all over. At number 4 is Driver. In 1999, this is a late entry for the Sony PlayStation developed by Reflections Interactive. Driver was so hard that the tutorial was, it was a struggle to say the very least. I don't know if you remember playing the original Driver. It doesn't stay as hard. It gets a little easier after the tutorial, but people got stuck on the tutorial. It might actually be the hardest level in the entire game. First off, you only have 1 minute. For a tutorial, it's pretty sparse on instructions, as in it gives you none. And if you crash 4 times, you gotta start it over. I do not understand how this was meant to introduce you to the gameplay of Driver. It is very hard. It's ridiculous. At number 3 is Ecco the Dolphin. And I remember thinking, a dolphin game? That's really different. So in 1992, it was something I definitely wanted to try out. Now, that being said, it's a really bizarre underwater game. It's technically an action game, but you can't really fight enemies. Most of the time you're exploring these confusing maze-like environments, and you're kind of trying to figure out what you're supposed to do while slowly, and I do mean slowly, drowning. It's stressful, it's confusing, and yeah. Probably the most infamous thing in the game is the last boss called the Vortex Queen, who is an alien. Yes, correct, aliens. She can, if you're not careful, force you to replay the previous level, which is probably the hardest level in the game, and a slow scrolling part that dead ends can kill you instantly in. It's super frustrating all around. At number 2, Silver Surfer, released in November 1990. I remember this game because one of my siblings loved this game, and it was entirely because they liked the character of Silver Surfer and not because they were good at it or because anyone in the house was good at it. It is probably not possible to be good at. It's technically a shoot 'em up, but you've got this huge hitbox. And if you touch any environmental anything, floor, wall, ceiling, anything, you die. I remember this being a game that made me probably angrier than any other game in my young life. Just completing a level, it's nearly impossible. And I don't mean oh my god, it was so hard. If only I had tried harder. No, I did not have any fun at all. It's just an awful, awkward mess. And finally, at number 1, I'm going to go ahead and say this is the number 1 for multiple reasons because it is hard as hell, but darn it is it fun. Battletoads on the NES, which came out in 1991. I don't know if there's a game that frustrated me more that I couldn't stop going back to. in the way that Battletoads did and was. Hell, I could play it right now. It's one of those games where I just absolutely love it. It features the infamous Turbo Tunnel, which is this speed sequence that requires near perfect reflexes or, memorization to get through. But it's probably one of the most unforgiving games too, because it's one of those games that's just tremendously fun as a co-op game, but if anybody dies, everybody has to start the level over, and it's like, are you joking? Are you kidding? No. It can be masochistic to play Battletoads, but there's just also something about it that made me love it and still love it to this very day. I cannot wait for the new Battletoads. We haven't really heard anything about Battletoads since last year, but hey, I love me some Battletoads. But how about you? Did you love any of these games, or were they too hard? And no shame in saying they're too hard. Sometimes games are just so hard they're not fun. I'm looking at you, Silver Surfer. Anyways, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.